Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Xony, and today we're going to have some more stories from Reddit. But before we start, it would be so much appreciated if you would subscribe to my channel, like the video if you enjoy it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now, without further ado, let's go. Now let's get into today's stories to find out what happened. One day, my wife was invited to go to the movies. She really enjoyed any time she got out of the house because we had a very clingy 3-year-old boy. I was sympathetic, and I made sure to share child duties, but I couldn't really help that I was the one out working and socializing with other adults. I knew it bothered her to give up her career, but we did what we could to keep each other going. We'd been married for 7 years. She was all had, and already I couldn't picture living my life without her. Maybe it was because we were meant to have our son together. But I know now that it wasn't because we were meant to be. On movie nights, she went with girls she used to work with. I was sitting with my son in the living room taking pictures of him when I decided to check Facebook. I was friends with one of my wife's work friends, and she posted a picture of all the girls in attendance that night with text that said, "P.S. Sorry you couldn't make it out with us tonight," and my wife's name was tagged. I felt my vision spin while panic set in. I didn't find out she was cheating, only that she was lying about where she went. I tried calling her phone and was very disappointed to hear it ringing upstairs. It was under her pillow. I thought that was an odd place for her to put her phone, and then I started to panic that she ran away from me, since I was desperate for a clue. I got on her computer. I found the note on the desktop, and I was beyond scared at this point. It said in case something went wrong, she thought it was a good idea to put this on her laptop. She planned to meet her online friend at the hotel and casino about an hour away from her house. She put a different phone number than the one I had programmed. I called 5 times before 4. She answered, sounding very worried that it was me. When I said it was me, a long pause followed. She said she was sorry. I asked if she was apologizing for cheating on me. Another painfully long pause. I couldn't believe this. She said yes and started crying. She said my voice was disarming, and she didn't think I was going to find out so fast. I started calling her a lot of bad names while she tried to reason with me. I asked where she was, and she said she was still in the casino. I didn't know whether I should tell her off and just hang up or tell her to come back home and we could pretend this never happened. I asked her who she cheated on me with, and she sighed. Suddenly she shouted no, and I heard AP's voice. He said he waited a long time to meet her in person, but now she was ready to leave her boring life with me to be with him. My heart was shattered. I had real chest pain because of this phone conversation. I told him to be a man and put my wife back on the phone so we could discuss arrangements for our 3-year-old son. As he handed the phone back to her, I heard him tell her I wanted to talk about our son, and she was just really quiet. She asked when she could see him next, and I started screaming. I said that she was a terrible, terrible wife and mother, and she didn't deserve to see either of us ever again. I told her to never come back to me or expect any love from me ever again. I heard her voice before I hung up. I told her family about everything in one long Facebook message and changed the locks on our doors. I realized that over the past 6 years, I had anxiety about this very thing happening. I actually had visions of needing to change the locks when my wife cheated so that she couldn't just come back into my life and trick me into forgiving her. I refused to be like my father, who let my mother walk all over him and come in and out of my life. She tried calling me 7 times before I blocked her, so I considered 7 my lucky number to get through this ordeal. It only took my wife a week to try coming back. She left a note on the door saying she just needed her stuff, but she said she was sorry more than once and that she missed me. On July 14, my lawyer called back with good news about the divorce, and just 7 short weeks later, I had my day in court to prove my wife was guilty of abandoning me and our son for AP. She admitted she had a long-distance relationship with him for at least 2 years when my ex called me one evening months after the divorce. She said she made a huge mistake. She said it was the biggest mistake she would ever make in her entire life, and she didn't know if she could move on from it. She said she never should have started talking to AP because I was the one she was meant to have a family with. She said she already lost all the feelings she had for AP, but now she was trapped in his house with nowhere else to go. Her parents and a few distant relatives were never really involved in her life to begin with, which is why starting our family meant so much to us. I hope she regrets her actions enough to never do this again to anyone. 4 years later, and I'm remarried with a 7-year-old son and a baby on the way. My ex-wife, from what feels like an eternity ago, called me. I didn't answer it, but she left me a voicemail that said she was just wondering how I was doing and wanted to see if we could get together sometime, because she finally ended her miserable relationship with AP and got a low-income housing apartment, but can barely afford it. She's really been struggling with paying her bills, and the affair she committed serves as a daily reminder of how she ended up in this situation. So her life took a 4-year-long detour. 6 years if you count when she first started talking to AP, and she still ended up worse off than me. Now let's get into today's second story. Here is my story. First off, I want to start by saying that a woman can go through criticism for the man she's chosen to marry. Those criticisms and concerns about her husband may or may not be true. Either way, you should always be sure to remember that the man under the microscope is a human, too. And he might not like certain things about himself either, like any undesirable physical feature. And don't get me started on unwanted man emotions, like aggression, anger, frustration, shame, fear, anxiety, or sadness. I know these are just normal emotions that everyone experiences, but if a man shows one or more of these too frequently, maybe he's just a person in need of help. Let me tell you what people said to my wife, which in turn made her slowly start to despise me. She started going to a woman's group where they each got to talk about their feelings and how life was going at home. I was at home with our teenage kids. We were married for 17 years. My wife hadn't ever physically cheated on me up until this point, but she did have an emotional affair years ago with her stepbrother that I'd rather not talk about. I guess these women encouraged her to really let all the complaints she had about her family come to the surface. My wife knew I had a really messed up childhood. She knew I didn't know my father, and my mother was neglectful. But yet she didn't think for a second that I didn't want to frequently experience anger, frustration, shame, sadness, or fear. When we first got married, she helped me through these emotions. But after so many years, she started to lose faith in me. She started to believe the ladies in her group and the lies. My mother always told me that I was unworthy and a mistake. What she didn't realize, though, was that she was proving herself to be just that. She was so disgusted with me that she decided she deserved a one-night stand after 17 years of marriage. She was terrible at lying, though, and not very sneaky. Quickly figured out where to find her, and she got a real show of my aggression in front of all the neighboring people that could hear me through their walls. I basically attacked AP. I wanted to attack her, but for some reason I felt like I couldn't. I spent a night in jail, but I guess AP had more of a heart than my wife because he didn't press charges. I couldn't believe she was convinced I was the one with the problems that didn't deserve to have unconditional love from her. She had some kind of obsession with her own family, and it didn't paint a pretty picture in court. Our teenagers also found out what she did, and they were disgusted. They'll always remember as a fact that their mom cheated on their dad with her own uncle. I only hope they see her as an example of what not to be. From their reaction to it, I think that's how they're going to take it. They live with me full-time and have awkward visits with their mom. I am most grateful for the fact that I was able to take custody of my kids and give them a safe place to live without the instability their mother accused me of. It's been 7 years since this happened, so our kids are in their 20s now. They both moved out and keep in touch with both their mom and I. But they take their mother's words with a grain of salt because she once lost patience with their father, who counted on her to remain his wife and be there through the good times and the bad, for better or for worse. All things considered, I can't help but be grateful because I have more than I ever expected to have as a child. I have a big family with my adult children, second wife and stepchildren. My wife never expected to remarry after losing her husband, but when we met, It was like fate knew we were two broken families that could combine into one.